Welcome to our very first episode of Eskom Journey. My name is Modise, and you and I are going to be travel buddies for the next several weeks. Ever wondered who Eskom is? We all have our own descriptions depending on the experiences we've had with Eskom. Some good, some bad. But the million-rand question is, what does Eskom mean to you? Let's travel back in time to discover how we formed this unbreakable bond with this powerful organization, Eskom. Tighten your seatbelt.
As early as 1860, the first electric telegraph system was introduced, linking Cape Town and Simonstown. Electric arc lamps to light Table Bay docks were brought into use in 1877. And Port Elizabeth opened the country's first telephone exchange in 1881. The lack of gas in South Africa caused local authorities to turn to electricity for exterior lighting. And in 1882, Kimberley erected the first electric street lights in South Africa, and was one of the first places in the world to do so, even before London. Other cities and towns soon followed. Johannesburg, Pretoria, Cape Town, Durban, Pietermaritzburg, and East London. They all had electric street lighting installed before the turn of the century.
Historically, in South Africa, a number of interesting things occurred 93 years ago when Eskom was born. Amongst issues to remember is how the Natives Act imposed segregation in towns, for instance. Nadine Gordimer, a South African epic writer and also a 1991 Nobel Prize winner, would also be 93 years old this year. A very small percentage is privileged with knowledge that Eskom originated 93 years ago. In all those years to date, Eskom has managed to power close to 6 million households directly countrywide, and various municipalities who in turn supply more homes and businesses, thus supplying 95% of the country's electricity. First came the gold rush, and with it came Eskom. The year was 1923. The South African Railway's dire need for the then steam-powered trains to run on electricity was actually a catalyst for government to establish what was then called the Electricity Supply Commission, Eskom. The same as Eskom, only written with a C then.
The Electricity Supply Commission was founded in March 1923, with Dr. van der Bijl as chairman. And so, with the formation of this public utility, began the saga of Eskom.
This initiative would consolidate existing power entities, including 4 thermal power plants on the East Rand. Even more interesting is to know that Eskom committed to provide power without profit. Yes, without profit. Fast forward to the 1970s, with the political climate of the day. Everyone would have expected Eskom, like everything else, would be affected. Alas, when the international pressure isolated the then apartheid South Africa, the global demand for gold, steel, coal and uranium remained very high. This meant that electricity prices remained stable. Subsequently, Eskom-built power stations named Kriel, Matla and Duva, each with 6 identical units and tall boiler houses that towered over the Mpumalanga landscape. With this kind of infrastructure, it was inevitable that these 6-pack power stations were amongst the world's largest. Safety is an integral component at Eskom as we totally conform to a zero-harm culture. As we continue with the Eskom journey, it is only normal that we give prominence to safety in our first episode. But then, what do we mean when we talk about safety? And at Eskom, what does zero-harm culture mean? Alex, thank you very much for talking to us. We appreciate it. And you have been very much part of the Eskom setup for quite a while, isn't it? How long ago does it go?
Oh, it's close to 30 years. I started my career with Eskom in 1988. I grew within the organization. I started at head office. I came from the mining community.
Yeah.
From there, I moved into the properties environment. Then I joined distribution, late 90s. And in distribution, I moved from Clarksdorp to East London, to our divisional office. And I joined the head office again in 2012. Yes.
Your interests, what, golf and cycling?
Yeah, I'm a very keen golfer, not always a good golfer, but the passion is there. You know, you walk out in nature, you chase after a little white ball. I'm into cycling. 2 agenda items on my diary definitely is the 947 every year and the Argus. So I did the Comrades, just 1 Comrades to tick off the bucket list.
Cycling, golf, safety, working for Eskom, making time for this, that, and time for yourself and family?
Absolutely. I'm really fond of spending family time. I'm really focusing on balancing my work-life, time that I spend. I've got a lovely family. I've got 2 grandchildren already as well. I've got 2 daughters and a son. And they're all out of school, and my wife and I have got lots of time to go on holiday and spend time together.
I noticed that safety is a big deal in Eskom, dealing with a resource that is so important but can be very dangerous as well. Just your overall personal philosophy when it comes to safety, what do you think of it?
Victim safety has always been my passion. And within an organization like Eskom, you correctly said, we are exposed to many hazards and many risks of injury and damage and so forth. To just give you an idea, our biggest risk is not really electricity, but vehicle safety within the organization. We travel hundreds of millions of kilometers serving the customer. All right, so what we've got in the Eskom vehicles, most of our field services vehicles are 4x4 vehicles because we go on very rough terrain. We've got an Eskom radio for communication with our control centers that will call people out and communicate where the faults are. On the load body of the vehicle, we've got toolboxes, and in these toolboxes we've got all the necessary equipment so that when we get out to a customer call, we've got the necessary equipment to do the work. Okay, on the inside of the vehicle, you will see the bib, which our people use to become more visible, especially when they do road work, with reflector strips and so forth. It's about safety next to the roads. All our vehicles are also equipped with a 9-kilogram fire extinguisher, and we've got a very robust inspection program to see that these fire extinguishers are always in a serviceable condition. Because we never know, when you may have a fire out in the field at the workplace. Electrical safety, that's our product. And electrical safety regarding our employees that work with electricity on the networks, our contractors that build our lines, and also the members of the public that come into contact with electricity. And working at heights is another risk that we need to deal with. People are your biggest asset. So we try and protect that asset in all facets.
You're one of the champions of safety within Eskom. Just tell me what your job entails, who your target audiences are to your messages and work.
Yes. We do lots of research to see what is the latest risks, emerging risks within the power station, within the environment of distribution or warehouses or wherever.
Zero harm is one of your campaigns or approaches within Eskom. If you can briefly tell me about it.
Zero harm means for us that human beings make mistakes. And we acknowledge that people will make mistakes sometimes. But our focus is, if you make a mistake, don't get injured. So our zero harm focus on injuries and our zero harm focused on the environment.
If there's a lesson that you have learned over time, and what is it from professional and personal experience?
Safety is a journey without a destination. Safety is something that you always need to focus on. If I just take one of the success stories within Eskom, the wearing of seat belts in a vehicle, and I can almost challenge people out there to find an Eskom vehicle where somebody does not wear a seat belt. I think we've achieved that, but we cannot stop and say we've reached our destination. We need to continue creating that awareness. There's nothing as bad as going to a hospital and visit someone, whether it is a colleague or whether it is a family member that got injured as a result of something that we could have prevented. Eskom, 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 Eskom. We play the safety side, zero harm.
We are talking to you because you are such an interesting person in your own right. The kinds of things you've done, you do for Eskom, you do in your own personal life. How do you get to be part of Eskom here?
I joined Eskom in 2002. And as a rep, as a service representative, and my duties was to teach communities about electricity.
I'm told you even run marathons, you've played football. Which club did you play for, by the way?
Diepkloof Leeds United.
Yeah.
Used to be actually owned by Lucas Hatebe's mom, but while I'm no longer playing now, soccer, I'm running.
Whenever I come across people who run the Comrades, please help me, and I'm saying it respectfully. I think that you have to be you've got to be a bit insane, you know, that it's not normal people who...
You're right, you're right.
I'm right, eh?
You're right. I used to watch that thing for a couple of years, sitting on the couch, you know, watch the whole thing. But I used to admire those people.
Yes.
And I knew that one day I'm gonna get the courage.
Yes.
I started training last year, 2015. I trained for this year, Comrades Marathon.
You only started training for the marathon last year?
Last year at the end of May. And I ran in May this year. So I trained for a year.
What about your personal life with family and so on?
I was very fortunate to get married to a beautiful lady by the name of Lungile Butelezi. I've got 2 kids, 2 boys. One is 4 years old, the other one is 6, going to primary school. Yeah, and I do strike the balance. I must say they help me also, especially my wife, you know, with the support.
Well, what is your position, by the way?
I'm a service representative, but I can tell you that right now there's a department of marketing in Braamfontein. I work with them. I actually drive the marketing truck because I use it. It's got a stage, it's got a sound system, and I go up to the whole of Gauteng, actually.
You needed to do what?
To educate Eskom customers and just the public in general.
Well, start with me. Why is safety important?
With kids, you start from the toddlers. Toddlers, there are some plug sockets that you find in a home within their reach. They can poke their fingers in there or put in teaspoons or anything, wires, things that conduct electricity because they are not educated. The painful thing with electricity, you can't see it. You can't see electricity moving inside the wire.
Yes.
You can only feel it by touching it, and you feel and it shocks you. And that's the sad part. So you teach them not to touch electricity, You teach them the basic things of switching off this plug socket before they take out the plug, switch off before they put in the plug. Because you can take out the plug while it's on. You see the fire spark sometimes, which tells you that you were almost shocked by electricity. So you make them aware of such things. You find a person talking on a phone while it's on the charger, switched on, dangerous. We get reports, somebody has died.
Advice is, if you charge your phone and you want to use it, you must not use it when it's connected to electricity. You must disconnect first.
You can use it while it's connected, provided you put the person on speaker.
Okay.
You don't get in contact with the phone.
Now, Zero Harm campaign that you run in Eskom, if you can just explain it a bit more for me.
Zero Harm actually covers the employees within Eskom, covers also the public. With the employees, then there's a bit of extra aspects like vehicle safety, working at heights. Some of our guys climb the poles and work overhead. Guys operating on the network. It covers all sort of things like that.
We must make sure ukuthi mawuzofaka iplug ewondeni mele ibe i-off, mele kube ku-off ebondeni. Angithi abantu bathanda ukuthi avela afaka iplug nanoma ku-on. Leyo nto leyo ayikho safe. Siyazwana? Right. Ma ukhipha iplug, angithi sewabilile amanzi egedleleni. So uyakhipha iplug. Before we khipha iplug, switcher off. Ngicela niyenzeni leyo nto leyo.
Working with electricity requires extreme caution and adherence to safety measures, irrespective of the strength of the current. At Eskom, the safety drill begins way before the actual trade. Safety starts in the planning. How do you, as a consumer, fit into the entire quotient? Firstly, it's important to acknowledge that electricity can be deadly if not handled appropriately. Taking responsibility is of utter importance, especially when it comes to connections. Theft has resulted in the most atrocious accidents and oftentimes death. There are numerous ways the public is exposed to dangers through substandard wiring, illegal connections, overloading of plugs, repurposing of appliances and its dangers, exposed cables, vandalism, and also stealing of cables.
The sad part about electricity is you can't smell it, you can't hear it. So it doesn't show you how dangerous it can be if you mistreat it or you treat it without respect. For us, the message is really when you see electrical wires that are exposed or that are at the position that you can maybe make contact, report it to Eskom so that we can send in competent people to deal with it. Don't try and touch it, don't try and move it away, but report it to Eskom. We can tell you many stories and sad stories about electrical contact incidents, and the saddest part of it is normally children that gets maimed or gets electrocuted and killed when they come into contact with electricity.
Unnecessary accidents can be avoided by taking heed of safety warnings.
Respect electricity, first of all, because electricity is part of our lives so much. It's like our friend. But your friend every time you make them angry, they can retaliate and be angry at you in return. So electricity is just like that, how we need to treat it. We need to be sensitive when we use electricity. I'll give you an example. You pour water in a kettle, you're boiling water. It says the max. There's a line that says max. And you pour water, you pass that line. And when the water boils, it boils over. And you've got now water and electricity now, which might get in contact, and we know that can result in a shock. And that's why I'm saying you need to respect electricity.
You know, with our efforts and people talking, the fact that we go to schools and share it as part of the curriculum, there's definitely a change in the people's awareness. We must also take into consideration there are lots of people out in the rural areas that still don't have access to electricity. We are on this massive drive to electrify. We're stepping it up now again, but these people haven't had the exposure in the past. So we need to create that awareness, we need to educate. And unfortunately, whether it's in the industry, whether it is amongst contractors or whether it is amongst our customers, people think it won't happen to me. And that is the message we try and get out there as well, to say, take care, treat it with respect and be careful.
Now we know that when we talk about safety at Eskom, we're not only talking about consumers, it equally affects the workplace. At Eskom, safety is an overarching concept. It's key. It transcends all levels. Everyone deserves to be safe. Today's episode has been an eye-opener. For ages, we just saw Eskom as a facility, but through the stories of Alex and Nhlanhla, we now realize that Eskom is made up of people. It's not an abstract. It should give us peace of mind to know that we have the assurance from Eskom of zero harm to employees, to contractors, to members of the public, and to the environment. I invite you to join us next week as we continue on our Eskom journey.